Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Jason is engineering the broadcast at Genesis Communications Network in Minnesota. If you'd like to listen to an archive of the broadcast, you can. GCNlive.com. And you can also go to YouTube, the Ron Gibson channel, and you'll find USA Prepares there, commercial free, and Republic Broadcasting, tape delayed next day. If you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933. If you'd like to listen on a telephone listen line when we are live, which is 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central, that number is 712-770-9418. 712-770-9418, and that is provided by Global Star. Thank you, Todd Waite. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
Just fine. It's frosty outside. It was in the 20s Fahrenheit, so there's frost on the grass, and it's just a lovely day. I don't see any traffic. I never see any traffic. I don't see any chemtrails. It's really kind of nice. You know, I wanted to send out a congratulations to one of our class. Joanne, who has called in here, has studied for and successfully passed the technician's exam for radio transmission. She is now a ham radio operator. So it's wonderful when people in this class pay attention and decide to continue on their own for the next step, do their own research and so forth. And I got an email from her this morning, and she asked me what kind of equipment I would recommend. And, you know, it's difficult for me to say now because my equipment is old. My equipment is about 40 years old, 40 years old. And if you want to know what kind of a rig I have, class, it's made by Kenwood, and it's a TS440S. And it's a 100-watt ham rig. And in its day, it was quite something. But that was 40 years ago. So I don't know the current model that would be the best. And if you're interested, there are plenty of websites that can help you with what to consider. And I wish I could say here's the best way to go, but I really don't know at this time. But I did send Joanne an email saying a person can't build a radio transmitter today easily because of the type of components that we use. We don't use vacuum tubes. It was a lot easier back then. And today we use a lot of programmed solid-state electronics. And so you have to be a programmer. You have to be well-versed in electronics. It's quite difficult, but you can build your antenna. And those of you who are interested in getting your ham license, and I suggest you do. I don't like the government's invasion into our lives any more than anybody else. But if you decide that you do want to communicate over a ham radio, I suggest you study for the exam because it will teach you a lot of things that you need to know that you would not study if you didn't study for the exam. What I'm saying is you can pick up a radio and key the microphone. That's easy. But knowing how it all works, that's something else. So Gordon West wrote some books, and I suggested to Joanne that if she wanted to, we could ask Gordon West to join us, and we'll talk about what it is like to get your ham license and what it means and what you can do with it. So I'm going to contact Gordon West. He's a USA Prepares instructor in the West Coast. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I also wanted to tell you that I think you ought to consider getting 22s. I've mentioned that over and over and over, and I can't tell you why. I mean, I could, but it'd probably be the last time we broadcast it. So I suggest you get 22 long rifles and something to use them with. And, I think things are going to get worse. I can feel it. I can see the supply chain coming apart. Guineith and I are going to be talking about the coronavirus, and we're going to be talking about the royal scandal today during this broadcast. Guineith, where would you like to start?
Okay, just for a bit of a joke, I actually saw this on Facebook earlier today, and I think I'll put it on my Facebook page. Somebody was asked, you can see everything going south, and what should you do? And they, the person, they came from Texas, and they said, I reckon you should get a 9mm, a couple of clips, and a box of shells. So this person, they got together a 9mm wrench, a couple of bulldog clips, and a box of seashells. And they said, okay, now what do I do next? That's a joke. It was a meme on Facebook,
Oh, jeez.
I'm going to post the image because the image is a lot funnier, but it's sort of like it helps to get it through here. Now, like I said, I have other projectile firing devices around here, so. But I thought, we have to keep our sense of humor.
Yeah, well,
because if we don't, we'll go absolutely crazy.
I think what the takeaway from that is that's actually probably a documentary statement on how stupid we have become. And I mean it. Yeah, that's right. But it's sort of like you can imagine the person that somebody would actually go and do that. Right. Right.
Because they wouldn't know.
Yep.
But that's, all joking aside, if that's permitted in your area, that probably is the best idea. Because there are some really, you put all the other videos about the Wuhan coronavirus were disturbing. There are some that are emerging now that are truly, truly, truly disturbing. I think that we will start with the coronavirus because that's far more important in my mind than what the royal family is getting up to. That's what the royal family is doing is a symptom, and it's a very serious symptom. And the coronavirus is a symptom too of the collapse that we're facing. But this is more relevant in my mind with the coronavirus. There are people absolutely going crazy in the streets in China at the moment. Now, the Chinese, by nature, are very reserved people, okay? They believe in not losing faith, in not dishonoring yourself. So, whereas in America, people really don't care about their, what everybody thinks about them, okay? You see that any time you go to Walmart, you're going to see someone. You're going to go down to Walmart and you're going to see somebody with a unicorn costume on. And it's going to have one of these button-up butt flaps. And the butt flap's going to be hanging down and there's going to be, stuff hanging out of that butt thing that you really probably don't want to see. And that's honest, and everybody's just going to walk past like it's totally normal. Okay? That's the sort of thing that happens at Walmart. But people are not like that in China. People are very, they pride themselves on the fact that they're the most ancient civilization on Earth. They, culturally, they've always put a great deal of honor, a great deal of emphasis on maintaining your personal honor. So to go absolutely crazy in a public place in China, up until this point in time, has been almost unheard of. And you are not just seeing people collapsing dead on the streets now in China, although you are still seeing that. You are seeing people going absolutely crazy in public places in China. And you know what's doing it, Vincent? It's the hunger. Hungry people behave like that. And when people have lived for a long time with enough food and enough water and enough freedom, you know, they forget that there is actually something really deep and primal in the human brain that, you know, it has really got a hair trigger. And all that hair trigger needs to be set off is a bit of a lack of food. Okay? As soon as people stop getting enough to eat, they begin going crazy in the streets. And that is where China is at now. The factories have almost all closed in China. That means that there's no production coming out of the country anymore. And, you know, it's, oh my gosh. But like I say, it really is just getting apocalyptic. The shops are shutting over there. The police, the blue team, or maybe we should call them the black team over there because they usually wear black uniforms over there. But they are going absolutely bananas. They are grabbing people off the street, throwing them into the backs of vans, and they're never ever seen again. They're, you know, if somebody coughs, everybody around them, it just panics and completely freaks out, calls the police come along and throw that person into a white van and they're never seen again. They're either taken away and executed immediately, or they're put into a plague hospital where they're not given any food, they're not given any water, they're not given any medical treatment, and they're not allowed to leave. That is their idea. That's what these, yeah, this big, 1,000-bed hospital that was opened, about 2 or 3 weeks ago with a lot of fanfare because it was built in like 8 days or whatever. It turns out that it doesn't have a water heating system, that there's no cooking facilities there, there's no food, there's no water in the hospitals, and they're not allowed to leave. If you've got family members who can come and give you something to eat, well, that's all well and good. But, most people are not going to visit their relatives in these hospitals because everybody's absolutely terrified of this coronavirus. Because it is highly contagious. It's killing 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 people. It's absolutely terrifying. And the whole country is in systemic collapse. And I saw one video earlier today. It looked like either a man's house or a funeral pyre.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought, Guineith. We're going into a break. We'll be right back. Guineith Isaacs is with us. She is in Australia. Guineith, you were talking about a video with a funeral pyre.
Yeah. There is a video, and I will post it if I can, if it hasn't been taken down. I will post it onto my Facebook page tomorrow. It looked like either a burning house or a funeral pyre. And it was filmed by somebody, and they looked like they were about 20 or 30 stories up in an apartment building looking down at this scene, okay? And a man stumbled out of the house or the funeral pyre, and he was burning from head to foot. And he was stumbling around, and although it was about 20 or 30 stories high, you could hear him screaming. And either these people had set this man's house on fire, or that he'd been put on the funeral pyre and he wasn't yet dead. It's kind of hard to tell. In China, they sometimes tend to make their funeral pyres look a little bit like a house, just for cultural reasons. But they are burning bodies over there. And this is the sort of horrific thing that happens when you get a complete systemic collapse. Okay? This is what we're facing. And if you think that can't happen in America, you're very much mistaken. If you think that can't happen in Australia, you're very much mistaken. Because what you're facing when you're facing that sort of thing is the core nature of humanity. And I'll tell you something, Vincent, the core nature of humanity is not pretty. It's really not. And this is, when you get this sort of plague breaking out, this is the sort of behavior that becomes normal. And people don't want to face that. People don't want to face the dark side of the human nature. They want to sit under olive trees and, strum guitars and sing Kumbaya. But guess what? That's not what it's like. The human nature is incredibly dark. It's horrible. People, in this sort of situation, I should warn people who might have small children listening, you might want to tune out for the next, 5 minutes or so and then tune back in, because I'm going to describe shall I describe the sort of things that people are likely to do in these sorts of situations?
Absolutely.
People are likely to eat their own children. Okay? People are likely to sit by the side of the road and wait for somebody to come on by, jump out and kill them, drag them into the bushes and eat them. This is historically what happens in these sorts of situations. Humanity's been there before, and every single time it's the same, In Venezuela, the people there got so desperate they broke into a zoo and they slaughtered a horse that was worth about $10,000 US. It's probably worth about $1 million or however much it was, So this was a prize horse. They slaughtered the horse and they ate it, and they never caught the people who did it, And that was a national treasure, this particular horse. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter that it was a national treasure because the people were hungry and they didn't see a national treasure. They saw, they saw meat on legs. And they got this horse that they broke into the zoo in the middle of the night. They got this horse, they took it away and they slaughtered it and they ate it, And for a day or two they had full bellies and they were probably a bit better behaved. But they never caught the people who did it. I don't know if you remember when that happened, But people do this. There's no cats and no dogs and almost no wild birds left in all of China. People are starving because the kitchens and the wild animal markets have all shut down. All the businesses have shut down. All the little restaurants and noodle shops.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. We'll be right back. Guineith Isaacs is with us, and we are talking about a most serious topic today, and that is the coronavirus. And class, some may think that it's only a couple thousand people whom have died, succumbed to it. Some may think that, well, it's over in China and mostly in Asia, and we don't have to worry about it. I've met so many people lately, and I've said, so what do you think about Corona? Oh, not worried about it at all. There's a delivery driver I was talking to him, met him for the first time. So what do you think? He works for one of those big companies. And he said, not worried about it at all. I said, well, have you been briefed on it? Oh, yeah, it's hygiene. Hygiene's where it's at. All you have to do is, wash your hands and we're good to go. I haven't met a single person in the last 2+ weeks, not one, outside of USA Prepares. USA Prepares were different. Other than USA Prepares, I have not met a single person, not one, who is concerned at any level whatsoever. I haven't seen people, I've reported this over and over and over during the last 2+ weeks. I haven't seen anybody filling up shopping carts. I haven't seen anybody changing their behavior, except I see fewer vehicles on the road. I see fewer trucks. I'm talking about, 18-wheelers. I see fewer trucks on the road. That's kind of nice. But I haven't met a single person outside of USA Prepares, faculty and family, who's concerned. Not one. That just shows me how stupid we really are. And then you look back at Doomsday Preppers. And I know the casting director of Doomsday Preppers. I invited her to come to the expo. She's been on the air with me. Her name is Brooklyn Bagwell. And that silly show was an entertainment show. And they'd say, so what are you preparing for? Well, I'm preparing for the grid down situation. I'm preparing for a pandemic. And we've said over and over during the years that those are bad. Either one. But why would you prepare for one? Why not prepare for everything? Whatever it may be. Because if you have a pandemic, you probably will have a grid down. If you have a grid down, you'll probably have a pandemic. It's as simple as that. And do you really think that think about when you're sick and you just don't feel well, and do you want to go to work? Well, how do you think the people who work at the nuclear reactors feel? Do you think that they will go to work when they're sick? Do you think the police are going to go to work when they're sick? Do you think those government offices are going to be open for you to get your registration and your permits and all that nonsense when they're sick? Do you think the postal delivery people are going to go to work when they're sick? Do you think the UPS and FedEx drivers are going to go to work when they're sick? Do you think the stores are going to be manned and womaned when the employees are sick? Do you think the warehouses are going to ship when people are sick? Do you think the telephone repair guy is going to come out when he's sick or she's sick? Do you think I'm going to go on the air when I'm sick? Do you think our engineer's going to be there when he's sick? When we're really sick, we're not going to be here. That's just the way it is. In Hong Kong,
I can tell you something. Yep. I can tell you something, Vincent. When I was 16, I actually had a really, really serious case of pneumonia, and I almost died when I was 16. And at that time, I had a job working at a kiwi fruit pack house in New Zealand, and the people who ran it were actually really godly Christian people, and it was probably because of their care that I even survived. So I know what these sorts of pneumonias are like, and you don't want to get out of bed. You are in a, there's a word for it. You're not even fully conscious. You're just in a place of where time and space does not matter anymore. Your lungs are hacking, they're rattling, it's terrifying, it hurts to take every single breath. I've been there. You do not, believe me, when you're at that place, going to work is the last thing you want to do. You don't want to go to work. You don't want to do anything. You just want to lie on your bed. You want to sleep, because when you wake up and you have a hacking cough, where every cough is like knives going through your lungs. That is what we're talking about with this coronavirus. And when I hear about the coronavirus, I remember the pneumonia that I had. I don't know what sort of pneumonia it was. The people who ran this pack house, they took me to see a doctor, but he didn't do any tests. He just said, oh, chest infection, take lots of vitamin C, rest, aspirin, you'll either get better or you won't. And that's about it, basically. And go home and rest. And obviously, bless the living God, I did survive. But I would say that I had a near-death experience at that time. At that time, I wasn't a Christian. At that time, I was a bit of a teenage outlaw, and I would say that I saw the gates of hell. Is what I saw, and it terrified me. And if anyone out there thinks that there's not a heaven and not a hell, I can assure you there is a hell, because I've seen it. And with me, it was a darkness, a very great darkness, and it was malevolent. It wanted to hurt me, and it terrified me. And I think that when I woke up from seeing that, I realized what deep trouble I was in. And I woke up and I remember I was in a caravan about 100 meters from the house, the main house where the people who owned the pack house lived. And I got out of my bed and it was pouring with rain, and I stumbled that 100 meters between the caravan and the main house, and I knocked on the door. And I kept knocking, and I said, please help me, help me, help me. And thank God the people opened the door. And they saw me, and they said, wow, you're really ill. Get in here, out of the rain. Oh, my gosh. And they nursed me back to health. But that is what we're facing here. But it's not just one, wild, rebellious teenager who's managed to get a job somewhere. It's everybody. It's going to be 1 in 6 people is going to die of this, And there's people saying, oh, it's race specific. It's probably not going to hit us hard here. I had that pneumonia 3 times over the next 6 months, okay? And, each time, with that particular pneumonia, each time it wasn't as severe. But this one's different. This one, each time you get it, it's worse. And, it's something where I believe that, from my scientific study of this, I've got no evidence, but I'm just got a hypothesis that because it works on the AIDS delivery system, on the HIV delivery system, that it ends up finding its way into people's bone marrow and lymphatic system because of its behavior. I'm just deducing that. I've got no scientific proof that that's happening. But if that's the case, you'll never get the virus fully out of your system, okay, if it goes into the bone marrow and the lymphatic system. And it'll settle there, and it will slowly eat your immune system over a period of 2 to 5 years. So this is one of the most horrifying. You'll be transmissible if it finds its way into your bone marrow. Then you'll be transmissible all through that 2 to 5 years. Okay, before you die eventually after 2 to 5 years, because your immune system's been destroyed. And you end up catching just a regular, ordinary cold, and it'll kill you after like 5 years or whatever. Because that's how the AIDS virus works, okay? And it's got the delivery system of the AIDS virus. So it is going to have some, it's not AIDS, okay? It is a coronavirus, but it's been hybridized with the AIDS virus. Does that make sense, Vincent?
It absolutely does. and I'd like to share with our class something that, they might not have known about. Right now in Hong Kong, there's a shortage of toilet paper. Makes sense, right? People aren't flocking to stores. They're not buying things that they normally buy. So what happens? Well, right now, ropes are being lowered from back balconies of apartment buildings where these people in Hong Kong are packed and stacked, in these tiny apartments and high-rises. They're lowering ropes, and toilet paper and food are being hauled up the ropes. That's how bad it is.
Wow.
There's a shortage of masks. There's a shortage of respirators. There's a shortage of biosuits. There's a shortage of pretty much everything. And just to put an exclamation...
People are getting bolted into their apartments.
Well, you talked about the Burning Man. I have read stories last week, and probably even before that the police in China are telling people that they cannot leave their homes. They are locking them and boarding them into their houses. And then other people are coming by and setting those houses ablaze with people inside.
That's probably what I saw in the video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the real thing.
Yeah.
And,
That
Guineith,
doesn't even begin to cover it.
I've been talking about these kinds of things for a long time. And I've been saying recently for, maybe the last several months, can you name 10 people whom you would absolutely, positively trust with your life and the lives of your family, meaning your mother, your father, your children, your grandparents? Can you name 10 people? And I have not encountered one person who said, oh yeah, absolutely, I can name 10 or more. Not one person can name 10. Not one. I don't think there's a single person who could name 5. We'll be right back. And it has been for going on 3 weeks now. Very serious tone because of what we are facing. I have recommended for quite some time now that mandatory homework. I don't know how many of you have done this, but I've recommended the TV series, 1975 TV series, 1975. It's a long time ago, called Survivors, Survivors, BBC. I'm going to read just one paragraph. I want you to pay attention very, very carefully to what I'm about to say. These are not my words. These are the words about Survivors, the TV series, 1975, produced by BBC, British Broadcasting Company. And this is what Wikipedia says. This is just the first paragraph. Survivors is a British post-apocalyptic fiction, drama, television series created by Terry Nation and produced by Terence Dudley at the BBC that broadcast from 1975 to 1977. It concerns the plight of a group of people who have survived an apocalyptic plague, pandemic, which was accidentally released by a Chinese scientist and quickly spread across the world via air travel. I'll just repeat part of it. It concerns the plight of a group of people who have survived an apocalyptic plague pandemic, which was accidentally released by a Chinese scientist and quickly spread across the world via air travel. If you watch that series, as I have, you will see what it's like. It's very well done. It shows the kinds of things that are unfolding right in front of our eyes. It's there in the video. The reason I suggested that you watch it was so that you would be prepared. what I'm finding out is that even though it was on television, even though you can buy the series right now on eBay, and make sure you get one that your DVD player will play, because there are different regions, people haven't done it. They're not prepared. They're not ready. Now, there was another one. It was remade with different actors and actresses. And it was 2008. And they call it science fiction. And the second one, the remake, the 2008, is not as good as the original 1975 version. You will see that there are survivors that seem to be good, and they change over time. You will find out that you can't trust the people who you think you can trust. And one of the most terrifying things of all is that when you see one or more people coming down your driveway, what are you going to do? Are they bringing help? Are they bringing good news? Are they bringing disease? Are they trustworthy? Do they want to kill you? Do they want to kill everybody? Are they a scouting party that's going to relay what they found out about your strengths and weaknesses back to the others who are ready to take over your camp, if you will? It's terrifying. If you don't watch it, you will be less prepared. If you do watch it, you'll be more prepared. It's as simple as that. I'm running out of patience with, people whom I used to consider my friends. I'm not talking about, our radio broadcast class. I'm talking about people I know. The Finelli family is trimming the fat out of our circle. Those who are mean to me or any member of my family, we've trimmed them out. If they're mean to us during the good times, what would they be like during the bad times? Is that what we need? I don't think so.
No, you don't need that.
Nope, I don't. And of course, I am not talking about Guineith Isaacs. And I'm not talking about Kyle Harris. And I'm not talking about Joey in Michigan. And I'm not talking about George in New Hampshire. And I'm not talking about Dane Wigington. And I'm not talking about Steve Elkins. But I'm not naming everybody. I'm not. There are some that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
John Reagan. But there are others whom I don't think I trust them. And if I don't trust them now because they have shown me that I can't trust them, I'm certainly not going to trust them later. And I suggest you get out your knife and start trimming the fat out of your circle. And I'm not kidding. We'll be right back. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Class, what I've been saying is that these are the good times. And sickness and disease and pestilence hasn't taken over Australia and Europe and the United States and Canada yet. But we know it's on its way. And it doesn't have to be the coronavirus. It could be anything. It could be some other strain. Pneumonia is running rampant. The antibiotics that you would use to treat some of these maladies come from the China communists, China. We know that. We've already reported that. And what I'm saying is you need to figure out who your circle is. Who's in it? I've talked to a number of people, including instructors. And instructors are not able to bring all of their family together, should they have to. They're going to have to make some very hard decisions. Like, what about their brothers and sisters? What about their children who are halfway across the country? What about their children who don't believe a word of what their parents are saying about how serious this could be. We're talking about cannibalism. We're talking about, this isn't the first time that cannibalism has appeared. When people are hungry and desperate, they do desperate things. Things that they wouldn't normally do. You've heard the story about, there was a song back in I think the 60s, and this artist said that, he had a lot of friends when he had a lot of money. But when he lost his money, he lost his friends. It's like that a lot. Well, when you become desperate, you literally do desperate things. You betray trusts. You betray confidences. You betray your morals, your values, if you had them in the first place. And I see it all coming this way. It's clear to me that it's coming this way. A tiny, tiny speck of an example is road rage. Me first. Me first. I mean, that's where we are today. I don't want to go shopping. I don't want to go out. I see how sloppy people are, how careless they are, how reckless they are. I don't want to have my side of my car dinged up by some jerk who doesn't think that maybe the door will blow in the wind, doesn't hold on to it. It slams into my car, puts a dent in it, and then they laugh and say, huh. I don't want to be around anybody like that. And that's nothing compared to what we're really facing. And seriously, what will you do if you see someone knocking on your door or coming up your driveway? I'll say there's 2 of them, or 3 of them, or 8 of them. Can you trust the people who you thought were your friends? I'm not saying woe is me. I'm just using this as an example. Do you think that the people who were at the meetup for 5 years, who raised their hands and said, sure, I will help. If one of us is in trouble, I will help. I'll help that person. And then when one of our meetup group needed help, no one helped. No one. That's what it's like. And it's going to be worse than that. Gwyneth, any comments?
I would absolutely tend to agree with you, Vincent. And, having been in certain situations in my life where I had to flee for my life with my son, I found that I didn't have a whole lot of people to rely on. And some of the people that I thought would, be there for me, that would help me, even close family members, ended up doing stuff that was just positively stupid, that put myself and my family in a bunch of danger.
Right.
And I'm sure this family member didn't mean to do this at this time, but he got pressured into making a bad decision by people who wanted to hurt me. And this is the other thing as well. It's like, well, sorry I betrayed you, but yeah, I was frightened. That's basically what it came down to. And if he hadn't been thousands of kilometers away, I would have slapped him.
Yeah, I'm going to mention 2 other people who are on my inner circle list. Rich Sheben and David from Illinois. Yeah. Speaking of David in Illinois, David in Illinois, welcome.
And you find it's the people who've been there.
Yeah. Welcome,
They're
David.
The ones who understand.
How you doing?
David, I guess the tone in my voice is a little different today. And, I'm literally trimming the fat. And I'm looking at the behavior of individuals that I thought was different from what it really is. And I'm realizing that the circle is smaller. Have you reflected on that yourself, David?
I had a what you probably
already realized by now a very unusual lifestyle
Yes.
my whole life. So I had to learn to rely on nobody. So I do not trust people. I observe them. The few people I did trust that I met, older engineers that passed away, they were the only ones that treated me like a human being, and they taught me a lot. A lot. Matter of fact, one I think you would have just loved to meet the man. But other people, no. I was surprised to find your show. Actually, I was almost giving up with talking to anybody.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that, David? You were surprised to find USA Prepares.
I was looking around at shows because to talk about these things and discuss these things, and then I found your show and the things you were discussing, and everybody, you just want them to tell the truth and be honest. And what I hear in the voices, I hear reality. And that means a lot to me. I can't handle somebody that lies. I always told people that everybody's lying to you. Everybody's lying to you. What kind of world do I want to be in where every time I go up to say hi to somebody and have a conversation, 99% of what they're saying is a lie? You know, I don't, why bother?
I don't know. I don't know if our class fully understood the depth of what you've just said. I do. And I know Guineith does. What you're saying is that people are dishonorable. They say things that they don't mean. They make commitments that they have no intention of meeting or honoring. They are, we might even call some of them fair weather friends. You know, it's like the guy, if you're having a barbecue, all right, I'll help you out. I'll come and, eat that barbecue. And if you have beer, I'll help you drink the beer. Who needs that? Nobody needs that. Nobody. And that's where we're headed. We're headed in a direction where we're going to find out really fast who our true friends are. A friend who will do something to help you because he sees that you need help and doesn't expect anything in return. But you're glad to help him in return. That's a true friend, and boy, are they rare. Really rare. And I'm finding out that it breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart that I'm finding this out. And I guess I expect it, but when it happens, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. David, have you had a chance to see Survivors, the series at all?
I have not seen that first one. You just told me about it. I heard about it. You mentioned it, and I'm going to look for it. I don't have any, with any of the new reality stuff, I don't watch it. We don't watch it. We don't bother with it. So some of the older ones, some older like that, I was going to suggest if somebody doesn't want to realize what could happen. I was stuck with one of the many times I almost lost my life in the hospital. And the only documentary was showing on the TV there was about Russia when they had the food shortage back in 1918, 20, somewhere around there. The time frame is a little, I'm not exactly point blank, but on the time frame. But you would know there was actually, they had to have guards in the cemeteries. And so people started to finally sit at their kitchen table and decide what child was going to feed the family. And that's true. And you can look it up. There's documentaries. They talk about it.
You're talking about probably the Russian famine of 1921 through 1922.
Yeah.
And it was quite something. And I remember my mom telling me when I was growing up, there are people in China and there are people in Russia who are starving. We are very fortunate that we have enough food to eat. Now, my mother and my father were children of the Depression. They were born in the 1920s, and everything was good for a few years until 1929. Then the bottom fell out. And I remember asking my dad, so Dad, during the Depression, what did such and such cost? And he would say, Vin, I don't know. It didn't matter, because no matter what it cost, nobody had any money. There was no money to buy it, whatever the cost was. You couldn't get it. You couldn't afford it. And that's the way it was. And so that's why we had, back in the 20s, 1929, 30s, 40s, 50s, gardens. That's why people grew their own food, because they had to. Believe me, it's a lot easier working for 50 cents for a can of soup than it is to grow, raise, butcher, make that chicken noodle soup, make the, grind the wheat, make the noodles, cut up the carrots, grow the carrots, all that. It's a lot harder to do all that than to pay 50 cents or $1.50 for a can of soup. But we have gotten fat, and we've gotten lazy, and we think that you just go buy it. We think that that's normal. But it's only been normal recently. It hasn't been normal in the 1940s. It was impossible in the 1940s. Meat was rationed. Sugar and oil were rationed. Tires were rationed. Gasoline was rationed. We'll be right back. So, class, the series that I assigned as homework was the 1975 BBC series Survivors, Survivors. It's available on eBay, probably Amazon. Make sure you get the right reason for your region for your player. The 1975 series is way better. The second production, which was 2008, is not as good. It's not as good. But if you can only get one, get the 2008. If you can't get the if you can't get the 1975. Guineith, any comments?
Okay. I would like to discuss for a moment. This still has to do with survival, last-minute preparation. Okay, because that's the level that we're at. Now, I did have to go into town today, or yesterday, and I picked up a few things, that were just sort of last-minute preparation for me. One of the things that I picked up was I had a set of boots on lay-by at our local pawnbroker, okay? And I picked up my boots, and I was so absolutely stoked. I was so happy that I managed to pick up the boots. And actually, the lay-by was a bit overdue because I had other things that I needed to pay for, but I got my boots. And you know why I'm so happy about these boots, Vincent?
I can't wait to hear.
They're really good, strong leather motorcycle boots. They are leather inside, they're leather outside. That means they breathe. They've got steel caps, and because they're motorcycle boots, they're strongly built. And yet I walked around town all day in these boots, and the only thing that I had was a couple of blisters, which for me and a new set of boots is completely normal. Okay, normally when I get a new set of boots, it's normal for me to get a blister or two the first few times I wear them, and then the blister calluses over on that point, and then it's never a problem again. And but I cannot overstate the importance of a good set of boots in the situation that we are facing. And you need a set of boots that is not going to fall apart, that is going to last for years and years and years, that is made of leather, that is really, really strongly built, that you can walk around all day. And these particular leather boots are ladies' soft leather, cowhide biker boots. And they are the sort of leather boots that you might get a biker chick wearing with her leather trousers and her motorcycle jacket on. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Yes, it absolutely makes sense because while you were saying that, I was looking down at my new boots, and I bought probably something quite similar. The boots that I bought were designed, I believe, in the 1930s, this style. They are leather. They are all cowhide, inside, out. They have a Goodyear welt. They can be rebuilt. And I was stunned at how much new boots cost. I'm looking at boots on eBay, used boots, men's boots that have 5 eyelets and 2 hooks. So it'd be 7. There would be the equivalent of 7 crosses to tie up these boots. $125 plus about $20 shipping, used, for good quality boots. Is that
That's about
is that
what you pay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep. And
Yep.
the way I break them in is probably a little bit differently. I put them on and I wear them around the house. So if I'm going to be reading, right now I've got them on for the second day, and I'm in the studio with them. I'm breaking them in, behind the microphone, because they're going to fit my foot before I beat up my feet walking around in them. But you can buy them. You can buy them, and they're expensive. One of our instructors is a for-hire insurance adjuster. So he is a contractor. What happens when there's a major event, there are not enough insurance adjusters, he'll get contacted, hey, we need to go to the East Coast, the West Coast, down south, so forth. And he was telling us that when he went to adjust for a superstorm that was on the East Coast, he said people were doing some unbelievable things. They were burning their furniture for heat. Now, to me, and in England, when there was a fuel shortage, and this was just a few years ago, in England, people were burning their books. They would actually go to stores and buy books because they could get more BTUs of heat out of used books per unit of currency than they could using that same currency to buy wood. That's how bad it can get. To me, it's unthinkable, but yes, it has happened. People have done this to stay warm. Why? Because they didn't think it could happen in the first place. They didn't think they'd have to burn the furniture. They were unprepared.
You know what, Vincent? You know what? When my husband Archie was a little boy living in Glasgow, he moved to Glasgow. He was born in 1935. He moved to Glasgow in 1939, just a few months before World War II broke out. And Glasgow became a major target for German bombers because that's where one of the major British shipyards was, which was John Brown Shipyard. And actually Archie lived at Mary Hill, which is, they've got a big military barracks at Mary Hill. And so that was also a target of German bombs. And, they were burning their furniture. Nobody had furniture left in their house because, they burnt it during the winter to stay warm. Yeah.
Here's what I was thinking this morning. I was thinking, what would we do, the Finelli family, if things continue to get worse and worse and worse, and we find that we hear this sound of chop, chop, chop in our woods, and there are people in our woods chopping down our trees for firewood because they're cold? What would we do? that could
22.
happen. Yes, that's a great.
I think
I like it.
Inclined to invoke Rule 22.
Yeah, or Rule 308. Either one of those rules.
Yeah.
Or Rule 3030, or Rule 45. David, what are your thoughts about that? Can you envision that happening? I can see it.
Oh yeah. Now, you brought up about the storms. Now, there's this group with they're preparedness people. They have a group together. I don't really remember the name of them because I haven't seen them lately. But we had the storms on the East Coast, the storms a couple years back. Well, they were going down there with their church group and bringing food to those people. And this was a year and a half or so after. And the Red Cross and the government people came down there. He said it was amazing. They came down there, put fences up where they were, and they were just sitting in there sunning themselves. They were bringing the food. He said it was so bad they had to put guards on their supply. And he said they were literally exhausted when they would run out of food.
David, I'm confused as to who is who. So you're saying this church group brought food down?
Yes, down to the people in Florida. They would make trips down there.
Okay.
These people were more or less what we talk about. They have supplies, they have weapons, but they also want to help other people. And they would go down there to the hurricanes down there to help with the people in Florida. These were the ones that happened a few years back. And last year they were down there, and they were still helping people. There was people that didn't even have water still. And the government, people say, I heard on other radio shows, I said, look, all you have to do is have enough supplies. For 2 or 3 days, the government will be here. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me address that.
That's unbelievable. That's gobsmacking.
There was a hurricane. There's a hurricane or tornado in Joplin, Missouri, maybe 100 miles from here. And I decided I was a Red Cross volunteer. And I was a Red Cross volunteer, card-carrying, picture photo, and the lanyard that said Red Cross volunteer on it. And I called the Red Cross to go to Joplin. They said, we're not taking volunteers. I went anyway. And what I saw was the police set up a barricade so you could not get in to help anybody. And I guess that was to keep people safe. There was a senior citizen who had just been helped out of a hole. She was, as the tornado was coming, she went into a depression in the ground, and a sheet of steel blew over her, and she couldn't get out. And the water was coming in, and she was going to drown. And so somebody happened to be there before we got there and pulled her out, and she lived, and she was fine. But it was terrifying. But at the same time, the police were there not letting anybody in to help. And we saw signs painted on 4x8 sheets of plywood that said, please help, need help, those kinds of things. So the Red Cross said, we're not taking volunteers. I went in anyway. And what I saw was the Red Cross had set up at a school the communication system, to make sure everybody was checking in with their wireless network. But they weren't checking anybody in. They were setting it up. That's what they do. So if you think the Red Cross is going to help you, you must be living someplace besides planet Earth. And the Red Cross said they were going to come to the Get Prepared Expo, our expo. And they were all excited about it. And then they pulled out. The same exact day that the Missouri National Guard pulled out, the same day that the Civil Air Patrol pulled out. They all decided they weren't coming. And that's when I realized that these guys are not who you think they are. I would not give 1 red cent to the Red Cross, nor any other organized charity. If you're going to help directly where 100% of what you're doing is going where you think it's going.
Now, can I
Please.
Here, like I said, I've grown up around these people all my life, the ones that are going to be in authority, so to speak, if something happens. And so things have happened, and I've seen things that they got away with. What worries me is people like where you are, farmers, you're going to have plenty of security. because they're going to be there to make sure nothing happens to what you have. And because it's going to go to the upper and them first, and they're going to claim, well, we're going to have this for the people, and we're going to divide it out. No, it's going to go to them first, and what they don't want, the scraps, then they're going to hand it out to whoever is out there left. But they're going to make sure those places, and that's, you're at a catch-22. What do you do? So you have to try to do something.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I think we have some of that already worked out, but you know, I don't want to provide any help to the people who've been beating us up. I don't want to do it. I'm not inclined to do it, and it might be led first before we do it. I hate to say that, but I'm learning what people are really like, and I hate them. I mean, can you imagine that? I really can't stand people in general. And I'm not talking about our class. I'm talking about the vast majority of the Inky Joel New Kid. He just jumped up on the mixer, and he was going to adjust the controls. Can't do that, sweetheart. The vast majority of people whom I come in contact with, I don't like. I don't like because they don't think. They're people who have these Echoes and Alexa. And why would anybody have that? If someone is so lazy that they can't flip on the light switch or turn on whatever that device is, if they're so lazy they can't do it, why do I want to associate with them in any way, shape, or form? I have one piece of information to share with you that I've been talking about the supply chain. Well, here it is. Jaguar and Land Rover is scheduled to run out of parts in less than 2 weeks. Jaguar. Because the Chinese factory that makes some of the parts that they need to finish their vehicles isn't making parts. And I've said that other parts, such as camshaft position sensors on automobiles, like U.S.-made automobiles, well, partially U.S.-made automobiles, uses these Chinese camshaft position sensors. And if that breaks, which is a common failure, you're not going to start the engine. You're not going anywhere. And we don't make them. Now what? We don't make a lot of starters. We don't make a lot of ignition parts. We don't make spark plugs. We don't make spark plugs. We don't make many oil filters. We don't make oil filters. Can you imagine? And China is shut down. There are millions. Let me say it differently. The Jaguar Land Rover CEO told reporters that their sales have fallen in China because dozens of cities are closed and hundreds of million people are under quarantine. That means people are not going to work at the factories that make the parts, that make the final assemblies, that make the things that you buy. And we don't fix TVs anymore. We don't fix radios anymore. We don't fix microwave ovens anymore. We don't fix anything anymore. You buy them, you throw out the packaging, and then you use that device for a while, and then you haul it off to the landfill. We don't fix it anymore. And because we don't have fix-it people, repair shops, we throw it away. So now what are you going to do when your microwave quits, or your television quits, or your radio quits, or your computer quits, and all that stuff comes from China? What are you going to do? How are you going to get your car on the road when that camshaft position sensor fails? How are you going to do it? You're going to have to go to a junkyard and get a used one that's going to quit soon. That's where we are. Because we don't have enough talent in the United States to fix the things that are going to break at the rate they're going to break.
Exactly.
Because China is shut down. And there are a lot of countries who have said, y'all from China, you're not welcome. Their airlines have shut down travel between the United States and other countries in China. And for good reason. They're a little slow doing it, but for darn good reason.
Now, I've seen also where, echo what Gwen had said earlier, where I've seen videos where if somebody had a steel door, they were welding their door shut from them getting out.
Yeah, they are.
And they showed people bodies. There was some leaks of photos of bodies laying, and the Chinese government said, "Oh, they're just sleeping." Well, that's a pretty bizarre way to sleep, stacked up like that. Yeah, no.
When we're going into another break, Guineith, your comments when we've come back. Think about what you want to share. I just want to share one quick thing about supply chain, what comes air freight that's not coming here anymore. You won't believe it. We'll be right back. 2 hours goes very quickly here at USA Prepares. So I'm going to give you very quickly some of the categories of goods that come air freight from China. This is just air freight. Forget the ships. This is just air freight. Computers, autos and auto parts, chemicals, medical control equipment, machinery, semiconductors, pharma and medicines, hobby stuff, home goods, apparel and footwear, consumer electronics, and telecommunications equipment. That's what comes air freight from China. The supply chain is broken. I believe it's way worse than any company has admitted. They're not admitting, except for Jaguar and Land Rover, they're not admitting how bad this really is. We told you that most medicine comes from China. Most hypodermic needles come from China. Most IV bags and plumbing come from China. You know that the auto parts come from China.
Vincent.
Back to you, Guineith.
General Motors announced in the newspaper, in the Herald Sun, yesterday, on Tuesday, that they are shutting down automobile manufacturing in Australia.
And the reason is?
I wonder why.
They can't get the parts?
I wonder why. They can't get the parts.
Yeah.
So General Motors, in Australia, they're called Holden, but the parent company is General Motors. After 160 years, they have announced that as of, I think, coincidentally, mid-March, it seems that it's all going to be coming to some sort of crisis point in mid-March. I keep on hearing that date. Mm-hmm. And so come mid-March, you're going to see Coppola hitting propeller, in my humble opinion. Okay? So if you want to know what that means, just go and type in those words to the internet and you'll find out what it means. But, people need to figure out alternative ways of getting around. And I have got two that I would recommend, okay? And that is bicycles and horses, okay? If you can get a horse at this time, one that doesn't need a whole lot of fancy grains and food to keep it going, one that can just keep fed on the grass that is growing in your locality or on the hay that farmers are growing in your locality, then get such a horse, especially if it's well broken and you've never ridden before. If you have never ridden a horse before, get one that's advertised as a beginner's horse or a schoolmaster. That means beginner's horse. And, take somebody with you who knows about horses, okay, because they will be able to help you to not get ripped off. Because horses are a world unto themselves, just like cars are a world unto themselves. And you can spend a whole lifetime learning about horses and still not know everything. But the good thing about a horse is it's a self-replicating transport system, okay? If you get a mare, and probably for a beginner I wouldn't recommend a mare. I would recommend a gelding. That means a male horse that it has had its gonad removed, okay? So it doesn't have testicles anymore. Mares they have regular cycles. And females that have regular cycles can be problematic. That's true for horses as it's true for humans. And they vary in temperament as well. But if you're not into the horse thing, I would get a bicycle. And whether you go choosing a horse or a bicycle, Learn how to maintain it yourself. Okay? Learn how to do basic repairs yourself. And if you get a bicycle, get some of that green goo slime stuff and put it in the tires, and then you will not get flat tires. Okay, and then you just have to worry about finding tread every few years, you know, the tires themselves. Because actually a flat tire is not a flat tire, it's a flat tube. But like I say, you need to figure out some other way of getting around about the place other than automobiles, because automobiles are not going to be an option, okay? And even motorcycles, I hear occasionally people say, oh, I'm fine, I've got a motorcycle, I'm into motorcycles, I'll ride my motorcycle. Yeah, that's fine. What happens when the gasoline runs out? Because
well said. Well said.
The first things to go.
We're out of time, and I mentioned that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've trimmed the fat out of our circle. I've trimmed the fat out of our circle, and some of the fat that I've trimmed out are some of the geldings I know, males without testicles. David, 10 seconds worth of comments, David.
Oh, thank you. I don't know what else to say. Sorry. You got me on that. At least you made me laugh today.
David,
thank you.
David, thank you so much. Guineith, thank you so much.